Welcome to Save as Ability, a podcast to educate and inform you about disability employment issues. My name is David D'Arcangelo, and I'm your disability policy expert.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back for another episode of Save as Ability. It's great to be back with you, David D'Arcangelo, another episode here. And if you can continue to help us grow our channel, like, subscribe, share, comment, it really does help us keep great content flowing for you and it helps get our message out. So, all right, today we're having a little bit of a level set episode here in terms of some of our previous episodes. Like I kind of get the same questions over and over from whether it's in government or corporate types or even just advocates interested in disability policy. There's some definitely recurring themes. And I think we're going to go over a little bit of that today. So we'll jump right into it. And let's just start at the highest level. Why we're doing this. Why do we do Save as Ability? Well, we do this podcast, vlogcast, to improve the human condition. At least that's our highest level goal of what I'm trying to do and what we're trying to do here is to introduce the topic, inform about the topic, and really persuade people on best practices relative to disability and all of the policies that then are involved with making sure that people with disabilities are treated fairly, they have access to opportunity to pursue independence and self-determination. So again, to me, that's the highest level there is the mission is to improve the human condition. All right. Now, some people I've spoken with or have communicated with me recently, they want me to do all of these other topics, and that's fine. We try to do topics on a whole host of things, whether it be the built environment and, universal design but we tend to focus back to employment. Why? Well, we tend to focus back to employment because I assert that when somebody is competitively employed, that leads to higher levels of independence and self-determination. And we've had many episodes about this. Like if you get stuck in the federal benefit programs, right, it's very difficult to get out of those. And we know that those programs, you're never going to be able to make a $100,000 a year salary off of the government programs. They're not designed for that. They're safety net programs, right? So if you can get independently employed, it's really going to lead to better outcomes long term. So that's why, to answer one of the first questions that I get asked, that's why we focus on employment so much. All right. And so then, well, what are we doing in terms of getting people to work? It seems easy. Why don't people just work harder? Or why don't we, I get that all the time too. And it's well, wait a minute, what? Disability by its nature, right? That we've talked about this, that prefix DIS, disability. You can't have a disability without first having ability. So we choose here at Save as Ability to be positive and to focus on a person's ability. Everybody has abilities, but we must be sober and cogent about the reality that DIS brings, that lack of. There is some lack of there. And how do we ameliorate that? How do we ameliorate those challenges to bring out all of the talents and abilities that individual has? Because if you create a list of 100 things in a job that is necessary, right? That the tasks or the skills involved for any particular job or vocation or work or employment, which are all different terms, by the way. That's actually the next thing we'll get to. But if you look at that, all of those things that make up that job description, well, what does the ADA say? The Americans with Disabilities Act says the person with an individual must be able to perform the essential functions of the job, the essential job duties. Okay? So if there's 10 of them and you can do 9 of them, but there is one that's essential that you can't do, well, then how can we accommodate that? Can we do it? Can we provide tools? Can we provide training? Can we carve the job up so maybe that one particular thing can be moved somewhere else? Those are all the things that we're talking about here. And those are the things that I work with large organizations to help understand and identify and come to terms with and develop programs or policies and procedures, again, to be able to ameliorate that, okay? We're pro people with disabilities here, but we've got to be cogent and sober to the fact that disability brings those challenges, that lack of. All right, does that help? All right, next thing. We get into data a lot. Well, why? Look, I'm empathetic. I care about people, the human condition. I got it. Okay, so that's there. However, we need to operate in a neat and business-like manner, a workman-like manner. We need to make this, in order to get businesses to adopt this, we've got to make it a business-like endeavor. And that means you need to measure it. So you need data. So you need policies. You need procedure. You need all that to be able to do it. So I know that can be frustrating. People, again, some of the people I talk to are like, focus on the stories. The stories are compelling. We love the stories. We'll continue to bring the stories in. That human element is essential and vital. We're not giving that up. But we've got to moor ourselves to data. We've got to make this a merit-based thing. We can't, just give the person with the disability a job. No, you've got to be able to do the essential functions of the job. All right. And that's all very well ordered with, again, and you use data to do that. All right. And then, so next thing is that I hear all the time is, well, this is great, but then why do we have such problems? Well, we have so many problems because think of how everything is put together, right? If industry was fully realizing all of it, we wouldn't have this. If government was fully realizing all of it, right? And so to me, it's about how can we get government to put in place parameters, but yet not get fully involved enough? Like government right now is doing so much for people with disabilities to the point where it might be hurting people with disabilities because it gets them trapped in these programs. It gets them reliant, and they're not self-reliant. They're now reliant on government. That is like poverty wages there. We don't want that. Okay. But industry, obviously, hasn't really done what it could be doing also. Why? Because the mission of industry and of business is to obtain customers and to make a profit and, return to shareholders and all that capitalistic sense. And that is good. And we can use that to benefit people with disabilities. However, we have 2/3 of all working age people with disabilities unemployed. So obviously, government hasn't done what it needs to do to incentivize businesses to be able to do it. That's why my last episode, we talked about all of those different things, which, by the way, I'm trying to get, and I've had dialogue with certain people in disability policy and data and things like that to try to score that. Because I really think that if my plan is fully instituted, hundreds of thousands of more individuals with disabilities each year can be employed. Each year, maybe even more than that. And cumulatively over time, it would totally transform what we're talking about. Well, why does that matter? It matters because many of these safety net programs are not viable long-term. Social Security Trust Fund and all the other things. And, so we've talked about that. Like, we've got to, this isn't an option. This isn't, oh, well, it'd be nice to have. We must do this. We must modernize this. And again, that's why I've spent time in these previous episodes talking about that. So, well, I hope number one, I'm addressing the comments that come in, whether they come in on, the Apple or Spotify or YouTube, or you're emailing me or you're calling me or I'm seeing you at an event or whatever the case may be. I'm listening and I'm trying to address it. So we're going to keep going here. We're going to keep trying to improve the human condition. That is our mission here. And we're going to do so in a manner that uses data and that is considerate of people and their own. You show me 1 million people with disabilities, I show you 1 million separate instances of the unique human condition. All right. So we haven't lost sight of that either. We're trying to have the blend here between, the left side of the brain, the right side of the brain, the people who only care about emotion and the people who only care about logic. We're trying to have the best of both worlds here for our people with disabilities. And I think we're making a difference. We're trying. We keep trying. We need you out there to get our message out. So if you could like, comment, subscribe, share. Sharing especially really helps us grow. So It's David D'Arcangelo, another episode of Save Visibility. We've got some great guests coming up in future episodes. And if you have ideas that you want to see us talk about, send them over. Another episode of Save Visibility. I hope you have a great day.
For more information about disability employment issues, please visit our website, disabilityemploymentsolutions.com. The Save As Ability podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube channel at Disability Policy Expert, or wherever you stream your podcasts. Subscribe, stream, rate, and review our shows. Your ratings and reviews help our show reach new audiences. Produced by Pod Pro Entertainment. Save As Ability lives within a network of podcasts located at podproentertainment.com. #TheNewRadio. Again, my name is David D'Arcangelo, and I'm your disability policy expert. Until next time, thank you. I hope you have a great day.